Released July 4th and managing to become the highest-grossing film at the box office for the holiday, overtaking Indiana Jones and The Dial of Destiny, The Sound of Freedom has been making headlines all week. From Christian-based production company Angel Studios, the same studio behind popular series The Chosen, The Sound of Freedom is based on the true story of Tim Ballard, former employee of Homeland Security who helped save the lives of children sold into sex trafficking. Directed by Alejandro Monteverde and starring Jim Caviezel as Tim Ballard, The Sound of Freedom is seemingly the film Hollywood doesn't want you to see. As mentioned, the film has remained in headlines, not just for beating Indy at the 4th of July box office, not because it continues to sell tickets, and not because it has a 76 critic score on Rotten Tomatoes and a 99% audience score. No, the biggest headlines from the biggest entertainment and media outlets instead want you to know how bad this movie is and why it's really a film for conservative nutjobs. We here at Red Moon have never shied away from criticizing poor Christian-produced films. Just 2 weeks ago, I reviewed Nefarious, a film I criticized for not only being generic, but for overtly spoon-feeding its agenda. If The Sound of Freedom were truly no better than right-wing propaganda, I would not hesitate to label it as such. Instead, we get a heart-wrenching film about the true horrors of child trafficking. That is not only just a movie with an important message, but a well-crafted film as well. With great performances from Caviezel as Ballard and Bill Camp as Vampiro, Ballard's contact and accomplice in Colombia, solid emotion revolving around the characters and their motivation, not just in the gut-punching moments involving children. With good cinematography and direction that produces tension and suspense as tastefully as possible when dealing with such subject matter. The Sound of Freedom is both well made and has a message everyone needs to hear, no matter what side of the political aisle you are on. Despite this, however, major publications including The Washington Post, The Guardian, and Rolling Stone liken the film to QAnon, going so far to belittle its fans as brainless conspiracy theorists. In specifics, The Guardian called the film the QAnon-adjacent thriller Seducing America. Rolling Stone stated, "Sound of Freedom is a superhero movie for dads with brainworms," and that the QAnon-tinged thriller about child trafficking is designed to appeal to the conscience of a conspiracy-addled boomer. Rolling Stone goes even further to disturbingly say the real-life Ballard, Caviezel, and other of their ilk had primed the public to accept Sound of Freedom as a documentary rather than delusion by fomenting moral panic for years over this grossly exaggerated epidemic of child sex trafficking, and calls the film a stomach-turning experience fetishizing the torture of its child victims and lingering over lush preludes to their sexual abuse. None of this could be any further from the truth regarding a $150 billion industry where over 100,000 children in America alone are sold into sex slavery. But yes, the film is grossly exaggerated and fetishizing the torture of child victims. Forget the fact that Hollywood is responsible for films like Cuties or Leon the Professional and the sexual exploitation of children throughout the years. And that's not an exaggeration either, as they themselves have cried for justice amongst the Me Too movement and have decried the sexualization of child stars from both Disney and Nickelodeon, yet have done nothing to change these practices. If you have the chance, you should absolutely see this film, if for no other reason than to judge for yourself. Yes, it is made by a Christian company. The film, however, takes no political stances, and even as a Christian-produced film, doesn't dabble in faith either, evoking God only twice throughout the movie. It's not without its flaws. As some critics have pointed out, it does have pacing problems, and I agree with this critique as it lulls at times or jumps from one narrative to the next a bit too quickly. Likewise, one of the aforementioned lines about God comes off a bit forced and hokey at the time of its delivery. Ultimately, The Sound of Freedom is a well-made film meant to highlight the evils currently happening. It does not fetishize these evils, unlike the critically praised Cuties, and I recommend everyone see it and judge for themselves. And once you have, ask yourself if you agree with the headlines of these major media outlets and why they want to bury a film that paints child sex trafficking as an absolute abhorrent evil. I give The Sound of Freedom 3.5 out of 4 stars.